Hi, my name is Kim Jacobsen. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a lawyer, and at age 51, during a pandemic, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. This video is in a series of videos that I've done to talk about what early Parkinson's looks like, to share my experience with those who might be going through something similar, or those who are just interested in the topic. Maybe you have a loved one that also has Parkinson's disease. Today I'm going to talk specifically about two subjects, insomnia and medication for Parkinson's disease. So I want to sort of take you back a little bit in my life to my late 40s. I was experiencing a lot of insomnia. Primarily, I was experiencing I never had trouble going to sleep initially. I was really having trouble. I would get up in the middle of the night and it would be 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and I just could not get back to sleep. And I was not functioning, and it was really going on very frequently. I wasn't sure what was causing it, but I just assumed that the cause was menopause. So at age 48, 49, I stopped getting my period, and I know it's very, very common for people who are in that menopause time to have a lot of trouble sleeping. I talked to a bunch of my girlfriends, and they're like, yep, I can't sleep, can't sleep, can't sleep. I'm like, okay, definitely menopause. And I didn't really think much else of it, but I have to say, not being able to sleep is kind of the worst thing in the world, especially for me. Probably if I value anything over, the obvious, my family, my loved ones, having shelter, things like that. Sleeping is definitely like in my top 10. It's really, really important to me. Even when my kids were little, when other people had so much trouble sleeping, my husband would take over a little bit the nighttime duties, because I just am not a person that functions well without sleep. And it was just getting worse and worse and worse. And I tried all sorts of different things. I was on Tylenol PM for years and years, every night, trying just to sleep. I tried melatonin. I tried meditation. I tried hooking up earbuds in the middle of the night to listen to meditation, or boring books on tapes. I tried doing some of the sleep hygiene things that people recommend, although I have to say I have sort of this bad habit about falling asleep with the television on. But I tried not to do that, which there was nothing that was bringing on sleep. I would wake up in the middle of the night, and I was probably anxious, and I'm going to talk in my next video about how I dealt with some anxiety and depression. But it was more than anxiety. I literally just could not go back to sleep. I would try counting, nothing helped. And so I just, chalked it up to maybe menopause or anxiety, and didn't, think that this could have anything to do with a larger disease. I've done a little research, and again, I'm not a doctor. Please don't take my advice for medical advice. You really should, talk to your own doctor. But now I understand that one of at least 30% of people with Parkinson's disease suffer from some type of sleep disorder. I read that statistic and I thought it was very low, because almost everyone I've talked to that has Parkinson's has had some problem sleeping. And I guess the medical experts attribute it to insomnia, difficulty falling asleep, which that I did not have. Sleep apnea, which is having trouble breathing, I think, in the middle of the night. I also don't think I have that problem. Frequent waking. Yeah, I have frequent waking. Sometimes this is associated with having to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, and I definitely have a little bit of that as well. Vivid dreams. I now wake up with the most vivid dreams. Like every 2 or 3 hours I wake up and I'm like, wow, what is going on? Last night I was dreaming about alligators. I don't know why. I'm not particularly interested in alligators, but nonetheless, that's what I was dreaming about. So vivid dreams often interrupt your REM sleep, your deepest sleep. And so the fact that you're waking up during that deepest sleep makes your overall sleep much less restful. Some people have nighttime confusion and hallucination and delusions. I am not there. I'm hoping I don't get there. That seems really, really scary. I know some people have reported being violent in their sleep. Again, that's not been an issue for me thus far. I also hope that doesn't happen because that sounds super scary. But anyway, yeah, not sleeping well has been a major issue over the last few years. And when I found out it was associated with Parkinson's disease, I was really hoping that there would be a good solution to that problem, my lack of sleep. So I want to kind of fast forward a little bit because I've talked a little bit about being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease through an exam of a movement disorder specialist and a DAT scan. And once I got a definitive diagnosis of Parkinson's disease, I had in my mind that I was not going to take medication. Medication, bad. There's people on the internet, they exercise, they feel great. There's a lot of mixed information out there about taking medication. There's some information out there that says if you put off initially taking medication that you're better off because the medication only is useful for a certain amount of time. There's also information out there that says that that's not necessarily true. But anything I read about medication, people said the side effects were horrible. I'm like, medication bad, not gonna do it. So with that initial diagnosis of Parkinson's disease, I just said, okay, I've already signed up for an exercise program with a physical therapist. I am going to exercise my way out of Parkinson's. And what I found was now that I had a definitive diagnosis and I was looking at some of the health issues that were affecting my life, one of them was the insomnia, the not getting enough sleep. The other was that I was very stiff and rigid. And I was doing the LSVT big physical therapy program, which I've talked about in my prior video. It's an intensive physical therapy program. And it was good. And I was able to do it. And it was nice to be moving more and becoming a little bit less stiff. But I was in pain every single day. My lower back was killing me. My shoulder was killing me. My neck was bothering me. For years, I've had achiness in my legs. My legs were bothering me. And I was just in constant pain and I was constantly exhausted from the lack of sleep. Part of the lack of sleep had to do with just being achy all night and tossing and turning. And, you know, a Tylenol PM didn't really do it. And I didn't really want to take Tylenol PM because I'm on other medication, anti-anxiety medication that interferes with Tylenol PM. And so it was suggested I didn't take Tylenol PM or melatonin, but I kind of tried playing around with everything. I was just desperate for sleep. We got room darkening shades. I got a weighted blanket. I was just doing anything I can. So I was very, very achy. I was in a lot of pain most of the day, even though I was moving a lot. And I was just exhausted. There was one time my son came downstairs and found me just fast asleep in the middle of the workday, actually. It wasn't for very long, I suspect, if my employer is listening, just a few minutes during my 15-minute break. But I just was really having a lot of trouble keeping my eyes open, especially in the afternoon. So I had gone initially to a movement disorder specialist who diagnosed me, but really didn't have much bedside manner, really didn't seem overly interested in working with me, really seemed to want to get in and out and just kind of have me deal with her nurse whenever I had issues. And she may not be a bad doctor, and it may have to do with the pandemic, and it's difficult to get into medical appointments, and she had a lot of personal equipment on that made her less accessible to me. I don't know why. We just didn't mesh. I didn't feel comfortable with her giving me care. There's a problem with the medical treatment of Parkinson's and probably with lots of diseases, but really you need to have a movement disorder specialist in order to correctly assist you with diagnosis and with help with medication. You know, I had said in previous videos, I originally went to a neurologist who referred me to a movement disorder specialist. So I kind of started looking around, and I am extremely lucky. I live in Connecticut, and there probably were 3 or 4 movement disorder groups that were close enough to my home that seemed reasonable that I could go to their offices. But the problem is, these movement disorder specialists want referrals. Well, I couldn't really necessarily get a referral from my old movement disorder specialist to see a new movement disorder specialist without having a very awkward conversation about how things didn't go so well. And then, I don't know, I just didn't really want to deal with that. But when I called the other practices, they said, we need a referral. We're not taking patients without a referral. So I really am blessed to have an amazing general practitioner who we have a long-term relationship. I think I started seeing her in my 20s. I'm now in my 50s, so I've been seeing her for quite a while. She's seen me through a lot. And she said, listen, I can do the referral. I can get the documents. I have all the documents. We can send them to a new movement disorder specialist. But I knew it's kind of like, one strike, you're out here, because there's maybe just a few practices I can go with. So I did a little research, and she had done a little research as well. And we decided that we were going to go to the Hospital for Special Care in New Britain. And I ended up seeing Dr. Simmons there, who I like a lot. He's a good guy. But I don't know what I would do if I was in another part of the country that I didn't have that option. There's parts of this country and especially in the world where there are no movement disorder specialists, let alone the option to see, to kind of pick and choose. And it seemed kind of unfair that I needed to even get another doctor involved, because I knew that things weren't going well with that doctor, and I knew that I'm going to need a change. But sometimes you have to learn to negotiate the system to make it work the best for you. I imagine some insurance companies are very picky about which doctors they'll let you see, and maybe there's only one choice. And sometimes your doctor is just not a good fit for you. And it doesn't mean, again, that they're a bad doctor. It just means they're not the right doctor for you. But I was lucky. Ended up able to switch doctors. And when I saw the new doctor, I said, listen, these are the main problems I'm having. I'm not sleeping, and I'm in a lot of pain. And he did an exam, and he said, I can't do anything about the not sleeping. He's like, the Parkinson's medicine is not going to help you sleep, but we can do something about the pain. And I said, well, maybe if I was in less pain, I would sleep better. Maybe if I was tremoring a little less at night, I would sleep better. I was having what I now understand were internal tremors, but at the time just kind of felt like my body was throbbing, especially my head. I would just kind of throb at night. So we had the discussion about medication, and I have to admit, I didn't go into that discussion with him as informed as maybe I should have been, because I kind of was at the point where I was ready to surrender. I had tried to kind of do this on my own, tried to exercise it out, was very willful. I tend to be that way. And I had talked to a friend, and she had given me some advice. She's like, maybe this time you let the doctor decide what your care is instead of you deciding what your care is, which I think that was where I needed to be at that time. And it's an interesting perspective. I think there's a thin line between being your own advocate, deciding what's best for you, and also yielding to medical experts. And I tend not to yield as much as maybe I should. And so I was just ready to go in and for the doctor to say, okay, this is what you should do. Unfortunately, he didn't necessarily say this is what you should do. He said, well, there's this medicine, there's that medicine, this has this side effects, this has that side effects. And I said, I just want to feel better. He said, okay, if you want the medicine that's likely to melt away all your symptoms the quickest, That would be carbidopa levodopa. And I said, okay, well, what are the side effects? He's like, well, some people have a little nausea, and he listed a bunch of minor side effects, nausea being the biggest one of it. And I said, well, I'm willing to try it, have it with a little bit of food, see how it goes. He said, oh yeah, there's this other side effect. Within 5 to 10 years, you may develop dyskinesia. I said, what is that? He's like, well, Michael J. Fox, like the head sort of shaking on and off. And I was like, huh, I thought that was Parkinson's. When I saw Michael J. Fox's head kind of bobbing a little bit, I said, I just assumed that was Parkinson's. He's like, that's dyskinesia. That's a result of taking the carbidopa levodopa. He's like, but it doesn't happen to everyone. Maybe, I think he had said 50%. I'm like, oh, 50%. He's like, but it's not going to happen right away. It's most likely going to happen in 5 to 10 years from now. And I hesitated a little bit. And then I said, I just want to feel better. And so he wrote me the prescription, and off I went. I've since done a little more research because I got a little nervous, and I'm like, I'm going to take this drug and I'm not really sure about it. And I've discovered that the drug was developed in 1960s, and it's the most used drug to treat Parkinson's disease. And there really hasn't been a lot of other drugs that have been as successful since the 1960s. There's these drugs called antagonists, which some people take, but they have big possibility of side effects, and people end up having extreme behavior on them. Some people have extreme gambling, sex addiction, all sorts of really bad symptoms. So I said, well, dyskinesia sounds better than that, I guess. I mean, the problem is that this is a drug that you are taking to affect your brain. It's not like a drug that's just gonna make your heart better. Your brain controls everything, and especially your intellect. And one of the big fears with Parkinson's disease is that I may eventually have problems with my intellect, and that would be an extreme cause for concern. And anything that you're taking to put in your brain, to affect your brain, obviously you're going to have concern about whether that is a good idea to do. So the carbidopa levodopa, it's also called Sinemet. You might hear it called Sinemet. It was developed in the 60s, and it's particularly good for slowness, rigidity, and some people find it helpful for tremors. Or people also, it is helpful when people are having gait problems, walking problems. For me, I've been on the medication now for about 4 or 5 months. And I have to say, for me, it was a good choice from my perspective today. And maybe I'll feel very differently about that if I develop the dyskinesia in 5 years. But for me today on this drug, I feel like my stiffness is much better. I'm able to move better. I'm exercising more because I'm less stiff. But the biggest effect it has had, and I don't exactly know why, is I've been getting the best sleep I've ever gotten in the last 2 or 3 years. I'm consistently sleeping at night. As a matter of fact, I'm sleeping probably 9 hours plus a night. I'm still having the interrupted sleep where I'm waking up every 2 or 3 hours from a really kind of crazy dream, but I'm able to go back to sleep pretty quickly. I might use the bathroom once or twice a night, but from where I was to where I am now, it's a huge difference, and I feel like a new person. I feel really positive about the world and about my progress and about exercise and about just sort of embracing life. And I don't think I would have felt this good without taking that drug. Now, listen, the doctor told me this drug is not going to help you sleep. I don't know why this drug is helping me sleep. I could surmise that the tremors are less and those were maybe causing me to wake up, or I could surmise that the pain and achiness is less and that was causing me to wake up. I don't know why. But for me, I'm sleeping really well, and that has made a huge difference in every aspect of my life. And I'm really just a happier person now that I'm sleeping. So that's how the drug has been for me. But again, I have heard a lot of people complain about the side effects with this drug and feel like it's an evil drug or things like that. And again, I can only speak from my perspective. I know the nausea is a big issue for people. You also have to take this medication timed similarly each day. It's recommended not to take the medicine with protein, so it does take kind of some sort of thinking about your life, thinking about your day. I'm setting alarms, taking the meds. I mean, it's not an easy drug to adjust to. But I've been very, very lucky in that I have not had the nausea side effect. I had it initially. The first few weeks were a little rough. I was headachy and nauseous and a little bit dizzy. And then after the first 3 weeks, I felt fine. And I actually take the drug on an empty stomach. It's not a problem for me. Again, everyone is different. So I understand if this was making you nauseous all the time, I think it would be a much harder drug to take, or if you were having other symptoms, headaches, dizziness all the time, I think that would be really hard. And again, if I developed a dyskinesia, I guess I'll have to evaluate, what to do. Can we play around with the dosage? Or are there other things that I can do to alleviate my symptoms? But right now, I'm just really feeling great. So that's sort of where I am with my sleep and in terms of taking the meds. Both have made a huge difference in my life. But again, I am not a doctor. I'm not here to give you medical advice. I am a lawyer, but I'm not giving you any legal advice. I would say everyone needs to kind of look into this for themselves. But for me, my life is very full, very much as it had been prior to having Parkinson's symptoms, now that I'm sleeping and on medication. Thanks for listening. And I hope this has been helpful to you.